Welcome back to the Sunday edition of the South African Morning. Gender-based violence is often associated with excessive drinking. But what about having a problem with gambling? Is there a link between the two? Well, the SA Responsible Gambling Foundation looked at that during a recent webinar. Let's discuss this with Sibongile Simelane-Quntana from the foundation. Sibongile, hello to you. As always, a pleasure in speaking to you here on ENCA. I don't think a lot of people would have automatically associated a problem with gambling and gender-based violence. Tell me how this discussion came about and what was found.
Thank you for having me on the show, and good morning to your listeners, to your viewers. In fact, you're spot on. Many people, they don't immediately associate problem gambling or gambling with gender-based violence. We actually we find out the links or the relationship when we were doing a study in partnership with Tsogosan, Newcastle, and the KZN Gambling Board. One of the questions that we asked the respondents was on their family relationships, what are the impact of gambling when it comes to family? And one of the highest respondents, about 67% of males out of a sample of 5,000, responded that they've actually became violent, towards their partners in one way or the other. And secondly, there was a highest number of females who actually had to leave the relationships or divorce their partners because of violence related to gambling. Now, when during lockdown, we realized that, there's actually a scourge or a surge in terms of gender-based violence. We then wanted to bring or create awareness around problem gambling and gender-based violence. And we wanted to link that to the study that we have found. And we then look and see if internationally, are there similar trends? We find out there is actually a number of research that has been done in the United States, in the United Kingdom and Australia on the family cycle and the relationship between gender-based violence and problem gambling. You will understand that when people are gambling and they are losing monies, they also lose their possessions, they lose their assets, and then they become stressed. And when they are stressed, especially if you are a breadwinner, you then take it out on your immediate partners. During the webinar, we then wanted to bring that side of the narrative to say that gender-based violence is not only about physical abuse that women they linked to alcohol only, but there is an association between gender-based violence and problem gambling.
So what do we take away from this webinar? An incredible amount of research. I think many people, now that you've explained it, Sibongile, will understand the connection between a problem with gambling. We're not talking about all gamblers. We're talking those with gambling addiction and a problem with gambling and GBV. How do we now try and get on top of this? What needs to change? I know at some casinos, from the alcohol side, they tend to limit the amount of alcohol consumed by customers and by those who are gambling. But from the GBV side, how do you try and fix the problem that you've identified?
You can't necessarily fix the problem. What needs to happen is that we've got interventions. In fact, as the foundation, we've got what we call a family intervention program. What our family intervention program does is we try and create stability within the home environment. We understand that when a member of a family is gambling, it's not only that individual person's problem. It actually impacts on the entire family. So we then provide treatment or counseling for all the family members that are now linked or live to the person who is a perpetuator of violence. So what we can invite people to come on board is that if you realize that your spouse or your partner is actually violent and you can't put a hand on what could be the reason for the violence in the house, you can come to us. We can actually do an assessment. We've got social workers that do the assessment so that we can isolate the problem, whether is it related to gender-based violence or is it just alcohol and drug abuse. So we actually provide treatment for free. Our family intervention program is free of charge to the user. Anyone who wants to access it, they can just contact our toll-free number on 0800 006 008.
0800 006 008 is the number you gave us. And just a final question, Sibongile, just as we're heading towards December. This is the first December many of us, in fact all of us, not many of us, all of us are spending with COVID-19. Incomes have been badly affected. There have been thousands, tens of thousands of retrenchments around the country. Companies are closing down. Normally, people would take a little bit of a bonus and go and see if they can maybe increase some money for Christmas. I imagine, particularly off the back of what we've experienced this year, spending your money that you don't have on gambling is not the best idea.
It's not. You've actually said that they will actually try to increase. Gambling is not about increasing your income. It's not about, making sure that you've got a second income, or it's about entertainment. People, they need to approach gambling as a form of an entertainment. If you win, you win. If you lose, you walk away. We do understand that, we cannot just think that everybody has the will to move away from gambling. In fact, there are people who become addicted, and some people can go on gambling for a lifetime without it becoming a problem, socially and financially. But there are people who are prone to being addicted. We talk about people who've got underlying conditions such as alcohol abuse, drug abuse, people who've got mental issues like depression, bipolar. So those are some of the categories of people that become then prone to become addicted to gambling. And you've mentioned that lockdown. What we have seen in terms of lockdown, the law provides people to actually ban themselves from gambling. What we have seen, we've seen a trend of number of people coming forward to if they're. Now, this tells us that there is an expectation from individuals that if I start gambling, my problems will be sorted out. And that's why we believe that we're going to start seeing a number of South Africans actually getting indebted or becoming more and more addicted to gambling as they are trying to close the gap between the lack of income and them being able to sustain their livelihoods.
And I really appreciate your time in speaking to us here on the South African Morning. Sibongile Simelane-Quntana, Executive Director, SA Responsible Gambling Foundation, about the relationship between problem gambling and gender-based violence. She gave you the number you can call if you do need support. My thanks to her this morning.